go live. So now it says going, okay, we are live. Yay, Clear Vision Wednesday. I'm super, super excited about today's topic, about emotions and how emotions are connecting to your vision. And I have my friend and colleague, an expert, Dr. Irene Cop here, who is a self-healing expert. She is a dual doctor in Western and Eastern medicine. And her credentials are this long, and I don't want to spend too much time, but just welcome here to the session today, Irene.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
You want to share just a little bit about yourself and your own story? And also you have a little story about your vision, right? Where you noticed how stress and emotions can kind of come in, but share a little bit about yourself and why you're doing what you're doing.
Yeah, it's like figuring out which part to share. So I am Dr. Irene. I am called the Success Without Sacrifice Doctor because I suffered catastrophic burnout 18 years ago and literally crashed and burned into a rock face in northern Canada. And so it has made me passionate about helping others, empowering others to heal themselves and to live their best lives possible, because I do believe and I know that we are designed to be superheroes, and we are set up for failure by our programming and by the experiences that we have in life, and that includes our traumas and the adversity that we go through. And so that's what Claudia and I were really bonded on when it came to the impacts of stress on our vision, and how our emotions and thoughts can impact that as well. And of course, and that includes the trauma, right? Because, and trauma can be one big trauma. Like there have been documented cases throughout history where somebody perhaps witnessed something horrific and they went blind. Right? That is how powerful the stress in our unconscious mind can be, that literally it will block off something, whether it's a memory, and that can include, or some other sense, right? So in other words, our vision, because, it was like to stop us from seeing that, shall we say, right? So it can be a big trauma, it can be cumulative trauma. It can be lots of little traumas, like whether it's parents fighting, parents getting divorced, separating, being bullied at school, the stress and strain of teenagehood, a new job. And so all of these impact. And so what Claudia and I discussed, and I know it's a module in her program, is that it's important to truly heal your vision. You need to heal your whole life. You can't separate out the two. And that most often means going back and healing things perhaps in your past that are still dragging you down. So for instance, I had fine vision until my parents separated when I was 8, and within months I was, I needed glasses. No, it was the stress and strain. And there was another time that discussed with Claudia where I was out on my first job after university, and I was working in actually a medical clinic. And I say unfortunately because they certainly weren't treating themselves, treating others as well as they should be. It was an incredibly stressful job, and I would drive to work in the morning and be able to see the street signs, and then I would leave at the end of the day, and all of a sudden it's like my vision was so blurry I couldn't see the signs. It happened so consistently. I went to an ophthalmologist, And the only thing that the ophthalmologist could come up with was that, you must have atypical migraines. Atypical because there was no pain associated with them, but it's a migraine that's clenching off the blood to your visual cortex, and that's why your vision is blurred. So he had part of it right. He just didn't have the reason. He blamed it on the fluorescent lighting in the clinic rather than the stress that I was going under. So there's just a couple of my own personal examples of how your experiences of what you're going through can definitely impact your vision. So we're here, and what we're going to be doing with Claudia and her group is really helping you heal at a conscious and unconscious level.
Thank you so much for sharing that journey, because when I thought trauma is this big, deal, and sometimes I have students where you're clearly, oh my God, that was really where you're that would be trauma. But when I went through my divorce, my children, everybody asked me as a parent, oh no, they're fine. You don't, we often don't think of trauma if we haven't gone through something really horrific. But all these little things, and I just wanted to say really quickly, before this, I did an Instagram live and Facebook live with my friend Irene, who just wrote a beautiful children's book called I See Clearly, because she realized that there is no book for children, and this is what you just mentioned exactly, Irene. It's when children suddenly get nearsighted, that's, babies are all born farsighted, so that's not normal. And she wants to empower children, to also learn this on their own, because Dr. Bates had a story of a child, repairing her vision, and she taught all her friends. And so anyway, she has this little, I just wanted to show this before we move into the whole session, but I don't know if you can see this, but basically she talks about emotions and how emotions, right, can affect your vision in this spread. So just wanted to connect that, because exactly, we don't really think of emotions a lot of times. When I ask my students, what affects your vision? Oh, the hours on the computer. And even that's probably the one thing that eye doctors would admit, screen time, right? And the lighting and all that. But when it comes to emotions, a lot of people are no. So let's dive in. Let's get going, because you had 4 questions that I shared with everybody on my email list. And just get going. I don't really want you to hold you back here, Irene.
Oh, and I want to comment when you said about the trauma and clarify that somebody could have the most beautiful parents and family in the world, and they can still experience trauma in terms of and when I talk about trauma in this case, I'm talking about a wounded inner child. And by that, I mean a child doesn't have logic, the ability to think rationally or logically until about the age of 12. So the whole time that they are in their formative years, that they're this big sponge and soaking everything in, and their brains are in theta brainwaves, which is the hypnotic state, right? In other words, that's how children can learn multiple languages all at once. Here's the thing. That child has no logic. So when things happen around them, they can come to very illogical conclusions. So mommy gets cancer. Well, maybe if I were a good girl, mommy wouldn't have gotten cancer. Or maybe, mommy and daddy wouldn't fight. Mommy and daddy are fighting about money, but the child doesn't know that. Again, she's just maybe I need to clean up my room more. Maybe I just need to disappear. Maybe I just need to, right? In other words, it doesn't have to be horrendous, like physical abuse or anything like that when we talk about trauma, especially to a child. In other words, so think of that 5-year-old child who is still inside of you. And when I say that, I mean it. And I'm not just being frou-frou. That is the level of your unconscious mind. Your unconscious mind that runs the show 99% of the time does not think logically. It's running strictly on emotions. And it's that 5-year-old child who's like totally bereft that their best friend just, didn't say hi to them, or, is throwing a temper tantrum and throwing themselves down on the floor going, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair, right? That's who's running the show. And that is who's running your vision, right? Because your unconscious mind and all the cranial nerves that go to supply your vision go through that, as well as the stressors, the fight or flight, the stress neurotransmitters, everything comes right from here. So I just wanted to clarify that, Claudia.
No, thank you so much for that clarification. That was wonderful. So yeah, and I can finally see the live chat on YouTube now that I figured out how to set up this whole live streaming connection with Zoom and YouTube. I'm so excited because I didn't know before. Like, I'm learning, we're all learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the past, I would have said, I'm too stupid for this stuff. And now I'm like, nope, I just, I'm figuring it out. Anyway, let's get going. Let's get started with that.
Absolutely.
So go ahead. It's all yours.
Oh, okay. So what am I?
Basically, like, what can, how can, the viewers here discover what emotions were, because you had the 4 questions that I sent out and I have to find them again to put them in the chat, but how can we, what can they do to find a way of like discovering this? And I have a training in my natural clear vision course where you go back into your childhood, right? Remembering your feeling state, not like your memory of everything in the head, but in the unconscious. But is there something we can do today where you can give them some kind of way to kind of access that feeling?
Okay, gotcha. So the awareness, I always say awareness is 80% of the battle and the solution. And when I talk about the unconscious mind, thinking of it like an iceberg, that your iceberg is, most of it is submerged. It's also the most dangerous part, especially if you're the Titanic, right? And it's called unconscious for a reason. So it's that there's so much going on that you may not even be aware of. And your unconscious mind can be very paternalistic in a way. I'll use that term. In other words, it's like it will decide for you what it thinks is safe for you to be conscious of or not. And it will literally, as in the case of people having amnesia after certain traumatic incidents, it will decide that, oh, you know what, this emotional or mental pain, I'll use that term, is too great for you to handle. So I'm just going to squash it down. I'm just going to bury it as deep as possible. And I'm going to distract you with something else so that you'll be focused over here and not thinking about this emotional or mental pain. And it can also be about the rage. Remember, I said that 5-year-old child having the temper tantrum. So your unconscious mind will also bury things deep if it feels that you may be a danger to yourself or others. Always think about that Hulk lurking inside, right? So, and that's why it's so important to come up with how to really like work around and go, no, you know what? It's okay. I'm a big girl. I'm a big boy now. I can handle this. And you don't need to help me on this score. So one of the things that I recommend is that you think about where you are right now with your vision. And you can close your eyes if you want and just think about your vision and think about how it makes you feel. It may be that you are feeling frustrated. You might feel like you are afraid, like, so you're feeling fear that, is this all I have to look forward to? Is it only just going to get worse? You might be feeling betrayed by your body, especially when you get to a certain age and all of a sudden you can't see things like you used to. And just really just with curiosity, just think about what feelings are bubbling up. Curiosity and not judgment. And write them down. And write down any descriptions that come to mind. Like I've had one client say to me, it felt like I was being stabbed in the eyes. Felt like I was being blindfolded. I was flying blind.
And if you want to share anything in the chat, because I'm watching both YouTube and the Zoom chat here with my group. So if anything that you shared, if, somebody wants to share that, they can.
Because there are always going to be layers of the onion to this. So there's what's happening in your life right now, as I said, like with the stress of my vision being blurred on a day-to-day basis because of the stress. And then there's the deep hidden reasons that typically come from childhood. And so let's start with what's happening right now, because the more stress you're under, the more it's going to impact your vision. So it's important to get clear, pun intended, on what is how you're feeling about it. And then rate it on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 being you feel hunky-dory, 10 being that it's really, really bothering you in your life. Really, really bothering you in your life. And then I'm going to throw out some emotions right now and see if they resonate, because oftentimes it takes us a while to get in touch. You may be feeling impatient that this program's not going fast enough and you don't feel you're seeing the results. Maybe you're feeling despair and hopeless that your vision's ever going to be able to change. Maybe you're feeling resentment, even angry that your body is betraying you. And perhaps when you were thinking before, something may have come up where somebody else was involved, right? There's that thinking back and going, when was the first time I ever experienced this? An issue with my vision? When was the first time I ever experienced this feeling of feeling out of control? Perhaps not enough, feeling inadequate, feeling victimized. Perhaps you're feeling that it's not fair. Feeling like the fear that everybody else seems to have good vision. Why can't I? Maybe something came up where you felt like there must be something wrong with you. That 5-year-old child might be saying, I'm a bad person. If thoughts or feelings come up, remember, just observe them, note them with curiosity. Perhaps you feel like a failure. Maybe something has made you feel humiliated. Feeling shamed. Again, like there's something fundamentally wrong with you. Maybe you feel inadequate in life. Like you're just not up to par. You don't have what it takes. Maybe you've been judging yourself really harshly, expecting yourself to be perfect, blaming others. Perhaps you're afraid of what your life is going to be like in the future. There's a lot of fear and insecurity there. Where do those emotions sit with you? Typically, we have 1, 2, 3, or more that really resonate. And maybe something came up that doesn't seem to be related to your vision in the slightest. And it's trusting and knowing that you can't separate out, right? What impacts one part of your life is also going to impact your vision. And remember that illogical 5-year-old child who's in charge. You may never know or not know for a really long time why. It's just trusting in the process. And now one of the things that I can tell you is that in traditional Chinese medicine, most of the most powerful meridians, energy channels, start or end at the eye. And every meridian not only has an organ associated with it, like the bladder, the spleen, the gallbladder, the stomach, right? It also has an emotion. So if you want to take a look, and I will show you the points. So the bladder meridian starts at the inside of your eye and then goes up here to the eyebrow and then continues back down and around all the way to your baby toe. Outside of the eyebrow, it's called your triple warmer. Think of that like your metabolism. Okay. So let me go back. Bladder is about impatience and frustration that this is taking too long. Outside of the eyebrow is the end of the triple warmer meridian. This is feelings of despair and hopelessness. Outside of the eye, end of the gallbladder meridian. This is resentment, rage, fury. Again, think 5-year-old child. Feeling betrayed. Under the eye is the end of the stomach meridian. This is fear. This is scarcity and greed, which is also why this is an incredibly powerful point. If you want, no, it's not vision, but if you want to decrease your cravings by like 75%, tap on this point. It's one of the biggest points. It's actually been researched and proven.
That's kind of right up underneath the eye, right in the center. And does it
Yeah.
also help release emotions when you do that? Or is it like,
Yep. Yep.
okay.
Absolutely.
So I'm
this
curious
is,
if anybody found a connection, or are there more points and finish the points, if there's any connection to maybe even tension in the eyes or any kind of, I'm
oh,
curious,
absolutely.
you know, are
Because
there more points just to like finish that up? Or is that the last one with summit?
those are
Because
the closest ones. Then you have the governing vessel meridian, which is one of your essential energy, life energy meridians. And it comes down in here. It actually ends right underneath your nose. But one of the most powerful points, yin tang, is considered, it calms the whole system, right? So there's that, it calms the fight or flight.
So that's
response.
basically the third eye spot, right?
The third eye. So usually when I want to, for those of you who may be familiar with some of them, what I'm doing, it's the, it's also called emotional freedom technique, trauma tapping technique, or just tapping. I do acupuncture and I've taught acupuncture among other things. And so I come at this more from the acupuncture standpoint. Thank you, Tricia. That's exactly what it is, EFT. So when I recommend to people, it's like I usually just say 3 fingers right across. And you can lightly hold, you can tap, you can, right? It's not like bung, 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 bung. It's just, it's acupressure. Okay. So yes, you can do all those. So the governing vessel meridian is incredibly important. And it's also feelings of that fear of being humiliated.
That came up for me,
Embarrassed.
like really, because I had glasses. I was one of the only children, like except for one other boy in class who was a super smart kid. And, you know, and one thing that still comes up for me today is when people laugh. And also because I live in America, I have a German accent, and sometimes people laugh how I pronounce something. And as a child, like when somebody laughs, I was also clumsy. I had like orthotics in my shoes. Like, you know, I wasn't like one of the athletic kids. So it was kind of the whole combination of being made fun of, that like that humiliation that came up for me. I don't feel it much in my life anymore, but when those moments when somebody laughs and I'm not sure what, did I make a joke, or sometimes I still feel that kind of thing pop up. And I'm curious, like somebody in the I just want to share some of the YouTube comments here.
Yeah.
So Kim said what came up for me was a relationship in my 40s that I separated from my work world, like living 2 lives. I was doing this time that I got readers. So I'm not 100% sure. So basically you had a relationship, or you separated in your 40s from a relationship, and somehow that was separated. Like basically as if you feel like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, like you're like 2 different people, right? That kind of feeling. That's interesting if you want to share more about that, Kim. And then Serena said, and I felt the same thing, when you went through all the emotions, she said, I feel all those things. And I was the same way. I feel all of these emotions. So what does that mean?
It just means that you're human.
Okay.
Right? It's we are going to have those emotions, and it's understanding that once we have this beautiful awareness that we can choose to use our awareness to put ourselves back in charge and to release what no longer serves us. And I'll give an example. Like when I work with clients, I have the boogeyman closet exercise that I call it. And that is that if you think back to your most embarrassing moment in life.
And that was one of the questions I sent out, because we sent out 4 questions that you gave me just to kind of get the wheel going in terms of like what can be some of those root causes. So what's your most embarrassing moment? Okay, keep going.
So, and thank you. I just saw them in the chat because I didn't remember that I had sent those to you.
Yes. That was one idea I recommended.
Yeah, because I just gave those to you off the top of my head.
Right,
at the
but
time,
I think they're great questions to kind of.
They are. So these are what this is an exercise that I take my clients through. So, yes, we talk about the emotions as and the little exercise I took you through. And if you're really having a challenge understanding or even becoming aware of where these underlying issues and challenges might be, the questions that Claudia posted in the chat, and I'm not sure if the YouTube.
Yes, I put them there too.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So it's like, what is your biggest challenge or wound? And that can be stress. It could be, something happening in your family, your relationship. Perhaps you're, doing your hard to keep rocking your day job, and you've been having kids at home, homeschooling, and just like everything, it's like you're trying to juggle all these balls and they're getting dropped. Right? It can also be what's keeping you awake at night. Are you worried about bills? I've worked with clients in some very challenging, situations, adult children, who were drug addicts. And I'm giving one that popped into my head, and my intuition always tells me to trust it. So you never know, because I never know who's listening. And I am very intuitive. So I've learned to say just what comes into my mind. What is your most embarrassing moment? And this could be your deepest, darkest secret that you may never have told anyone. Right. And when I talk about working with my clients and letting the boogeyman out of the closet, it's like, think about, like, as a child, it's like you're afraid of, like, what's inside that closet door. And it's just like in your imagination, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Until it like colors your whole existence, and you're paralyzed with the fear of what that might be. Or in this case, your most embarrassing moment, you're paralyzed with the shame, right? Remember, that inner judge and jury has convicted you and said, I am this bad, awful person. Oh my God, how could I have allowed that to happen to me? It's like, I can't let anyone ever know about that. Right? And it becomes like this, it really truly can make you feel like, what? I'll give an example. I'm not going to tell you what the embarrassing moment was. However, maybe another time. Got to come back. When I was 5 years old, that was my most embarrassing moment ever. I was on a school bus. I was completely ashamed. And I never told a soul. Never told a soul from the time I was 5 years old till I was 27. And I was getting serious with my boyfriend, who then later became my husband. And, it's one of those, you ever have like those discussions with a significant other, and you're like, I feel like I need to tell you something, and I'm really afraid that you're going to hate my guts afterwards. Do you ever have that kind of conversation?
Yes.
Right? Like, right. And so I built up my courage. I screwed up my courage to tell him. And the instant the words came out of my mouth, I went, that's it? I have been punishing myself for over 20 years, thinking I was this bad, horrible monster, that I should be ashamed of myself. And it was over such a little thing that, I just started laughing. Now, sometimes our embarrassing moments aren't so laughable, but the point is like, it's that awareness piece of just opening the door, letting the boogeyman out of the closet and going, it's okay. Because guess what? I'm an adult now and I can face this. What is one experience you'd most like to go back and change? That's my positive way of also saying, perhaps it was abuse. In other words, maybe something was done to you. Maybe you put somebody else down. Maybe you were the bully in school. right? So it might be something you feel remorse for, or maybe you feel like an incident where you feel victimized. So these are great starting questions to really ask yourself, just to allow things to bubble up, just blub, 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 blub. And the key is, again, curiosity. Go, oh, that's interesting. Where did that fear come from? It doesn't matter if it's not logical, not in the slightest. Just allow it to bubble up and then see how it feels. Maybe you suddenly get like tightness in your chest, or you feel like you can't swallow, or you feel like you've been biffed in the stomach. Right? In other words, pay attention to how you're feeling, because if you're feeling like in the stomach, it could be related to the stomach meridian. Same thing, fear. If you're feeling inadequate, and I use that phrase for a specific because that is the negative emotion with your kidneys. And even though the kidney meridian ends here, it still impacts your whole system. And the negative emotion with your kidney meridian is feeling like you're inadequate. Think of like that. Am I allowed to say this, Claudia? You can beat me out afterward.
What?
Like you don't have the cojones.
Oh no, you can say that, of course.
Okay, right? Yeah. Like, so in other words, it's that sexual primal, but sexual in terms of I don't have what it takes. It's not that it's not even enough to say you're incompetent. I am inadequate. Right? That's what the kidney meridian's emotion is. So it's important to look at how your emotions are impacting your physical in Chinese medicine and in everything except conventional medicine. And yes, I have that MD behind my name as well. In everything but conventional medicine that loves to like peel everything apart and say, oh, you have high blood pressure, take this pill. Oh, you have high blood sugar, take this pill. Oh, you have hypothyroid, take this pill, right? Rather than looking at what does all of this together mean? In every other, whether it's discipline, whether it's traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, they look at the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, energetic as one, and that you can't separate them out, which is why it's so important that we look. So may I give just a little exercise?
Yeah, I have like two more before we do this. That would be a great wrap up.
Yeah.
2 questions. I'm curious. The liver is obviously in Chinese medicine connected to the eyes, but you haven't spoken about the liver, and I heard that it's connected to angriness, like anger. Like, that's one question. And then the other one is Serena is asking, does it start in childhood and then continue to adulthood? And that's kind of the whole thing we were talking about, how, when I ask my students, when did you get your first pair of glasses, or when did your vision get blurry? And that's kind of the time, or the few years before then, right, to kind of figure out. And that's kind of what we're talking about here, Serena. So yeah, a lot of things are still very deep down inside. But yeah, I'm just curious about the liver, and then yes, the exercise, and then we're going to end this YouTube live today. But yeah, can you just talk a little bit about the liver? Because I just heard that, and I'm not trained in Chinese medicine, but I'm just curious if there's a connection to the eye, or what that meridian would be.
There is. And the thought that popped into my head was that saying the eyes are a mirror to the soul. Right. And again, in many disciplines, like including iridology, where they'll like actually look at the iris and the health. And even Hippocrates, again, like all the ancient disciplines, used to look at the eye to determine what was going on with the body. So Claudia, the liver meridian ends right underneath the breast, in line with the nipple. So while it doesn't go anywhere near the eye in terms of that, it is strongly paired with the gallbladder, which does end at the outside of the eye. So yes, the liver is anger as well, and gallbladder is anger and rage. Like think of the Hulk and needing to forgive.
Well, that was my thing after my divorce. I was so angry, And my vision got worse, worse, and worse during my marriage and then my divorce. I mean, that was definitely 100% me.
Mhm.
So interesting. So yeah, share us your little thing. That would be great. That would be a great way to finish the YouTube session today.
How much time do we have?
Well, I don't really have strict time limits, but how long do you think it would take? Usually the whole thing is like the longest I've ever done was an hour.
Okay, so we'll do this fast. We've already done part of the awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody just keep in mind those questions and your answers to them. In other words, even aside from your eyesight, just trusting in the process, what is your biggest wound right now? The biggest challenge you're facing? Close your eyes. Take a deep breath in and hold it. And let it all out. Another deep breath in and hold it. And let it all out. One more deep breath in and hold it. And let it all out. Now continuing to breathe deeply and slowly. Just bring to mind those questions and see what resonates with you the most, because we're all different. What is your biggest wound or challenge? What's keeping you awake at night? What do you wish you could go back and change? And maybe what's your most embarrassing moment? What stresses are you feeling right now? And perhaps even over the last year, 2 years, keeping in mind, even though we're coming out of COVID, like a pot of water that's boiled to the point of overflowing, even if you take it off the stove, it's still going to take a while for the temperature to come back down. It's the same thing with your stress, the impacts of the stress on your body, mind, and spirit. Perhaps you're experiencing trauma because of what you've been going through in life. They're saying that PTSD is on the rise because of COVID, even getting the infection. All of our experiences, the crises, the upheaval, the uncertainty, the fear. All of the extreme emotions that have been buffeting us. Just allow yourself to be aware, trusting that whatever bubbles up, pops into your mind, what you're thinking, feeling, and rate it on a scale of 0 to 10. And now, starting to tap on the side of your hand, just underneath your knuckle. Tap or lightly hold. I'm going to do 3 statements that are designed to help your unconscious mind release these stresses and emotions. And you can repeat after me or in your head. Even though I've been through so much, so much stress, so much pain, I know it's been impacting my body maybe even my vision. I love and accept myself. And anything else who has caused all this stress and strain. Even though my vision is getting worse. And I'm afraid it's all downhill from here. I love and accept myself. And my eyesight too. Even though there's part of me that is so angry at the world, angry at life. Why did this have to happen? It's not fair. I love, honor, and forgive myself for anything I may have done to cause this. And anyone else who may have contributed to it. Three fingers between the eyebrows to get yin tang as well. I'm so frustrated that my eyesight isn't getting any better. Following your eyebrow out to the outside. It feels pretty hopeless that it can get better. Outside of the eye. It's not fair. Under the eye. I'm so afraid this is all I have to look forward to. Side of the nose, like in the cleft. Kind of maybe looks like I'm picking my nose and I'm not. Maybe it's because I'm just broken. Under the nose. Maybe others are right to humiliate me and embarrass me. Under the mouth. Because there's something wrong with me. Collarbone point. Maybe I just don't have what it takes to improve my vision or improve my life. Following your collarbones out towards your shoulders and falling down into the dip. I don't know who's more to blame, myself or others. Under the breast. It's just not fair. Under the arm. I'm so afraid of what my future looks like.
Where's the under the arm? Can you show that? So
It's right under the arm down to the bra line.
okay.
Sorry,
gotcha.
guys.
Gotcha. Can you say that statement again?
Trying to remember what I was saying.
It's okay, or whatever else.
It's okay. Because I don't have a script.
I know.
I'm really afraid of what my future health will be, including my eyesight. Top of the head. And I'm choosing to take control and heal myself from the inside out anyway. Eyebrow point. Choosing to release any frustration or impatience that I feel around my vision or any other part of my life outside of the eyebrow. Choosing to release any hopelessness or despair around my vision or any other challenge in my life. Side of the eye. Choosing to release this resentment and anger that I'm feeling toward myself and others. Under the eye. Choosing to release this fear that there's not enough health, wealth, or happiness in the world. And I'm always going to come up short. Side of the nose. Choosing to release any guilt that I may be feeling in any area of my life, all the way back through my past. Under the nose. Choosing to know that I am worthy of respect, appreciation, and love. Under the mouth. Choosing to know that I am worthy of health, wealth, and happiness, including great vision. Collarbone point. Choosing to know that I have the ability to heal myself. And it all starts with awareness. Outside of the lung, right underneath the collar, the shoulder and collarbone. Choosing to release any judgment or blame I've been directing toward myself or others. Under the breast. Choosing to release any remaining frustration and anger. Under the arm. Choosing to know that I'm going to be fine no matter what life and curveballs are thrown my way. Top of the head. Choosing to be the healer of my body, mind, soul, and vision. Take a deep breath in and let it all out. And thinking back to those questions and thoughts, checking back on the intensity rating of whatever came up and see where it is now. And because I'm sure this is going to be recorded, come back to the last few minutes of this recording and continue tapping until it's at least a 2 to 3 out of 10. And trust that even if you felt that what I was actually saying had no bearing on you, know that you, by doing the physical tapping, were already improving your health. Physical health, mental health, emotional health, energetic health.
Thank you. That was amazing. I definitely have a huge decrease. I went from like a 9 to down like a 4.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was really amazing. So
awesome. I'd love to hear what others.
Yeah, I'm looking at the chat on YouTube. Well, I think that was kind of Laura, as was asking, once you identify the emotion, how do you work on it? And I think we just did that. You probably asked the question before we did the tapping. Mm-hmm. If it is so rooted, I keep seeing inadequate or not fitting in, and looking at the past helps to see the stories I've made up, but I keep seeing it affecting me now. So I don't know if you're still there, Laura, if that was helpful, the tapping, and maybe just we do that a few times. So Irene said, yes, it was helpful.
So one caveat that I want to say to this is that if for some reason it gets worse, it could just mean that there is, like, you've opened Pandora's box and that there's something that's really deep inside that just may make you feel temporarily worse. Know, number one, that it's okay. And number two, that if it doesn't get better, that's the time to reach out. Okay, because there are times, like, I've gone and gotten outside help myself, because guess what? Even though I teach this and I help others with this, I can't help myself all the time with this. In other words, when it comes to really deep-seated, like, I had an abusive childhood and, a lot of stuff happened. And so I went and got outside help.
I did that too.
Just know it's okay.
I think it's important to know that I got counseling too during my divorce and really difficult times. And I think we always jump to like body, like, massage, chiropractor, like those kind of things. But when it comes to our emotional and mental health, sometimes, like you said, Dr. Irene, I really appreciate that. Sometimes we can start, we can kind of open it up, we can become that awareness, but sometimes we need somebody else to really help us, bridge that gap and really come out, on the other side. So I do want to say that as well. So Kim said from a 7 to a 3. So, and then here in the chat, 8 down to a 3. Yeah. Wow. Beautiful. Yeah. We're going to, in my Clear Vision Club, we have a few more moments together. I'm going to end the YouTube live. That was really, really wonderful. So thank you so much. And make sure now that I have YouTube figured out with a notification and actually setting this all up correctly, it only took me 3 months. Follow me on YouTube, click the little bell icon that you get notified when I go live, and I will in the future always share the live streaming link beforehand, now that I know how to do that. So yeah. And if you're on Instagram, I think you're on, I'm at Holistic Vision Coach on Instagram. And I think, what is your Instagram handle? I can put that.
It's at Dr. Irene C.
Dr. Irene C. I'm
trying to remember if there's a period in there. How's that for not knowing my Instagram handle?
I follow you on Instagram, but you can always look for Irene Cop and then you pop up. And so anyway, all right, you guys.
Dr. Period Irene C.
Oh, Dr. Period. Okay, I just put the wrong thing. Dr. Period. Okay, Dr. Irene. This is like a weird thing for me to type. Okay, I'm going to delete the wrong one from the chat so that then it's not visible anymore. Okay, you guys on YouTube. We're going to close the YouTube live now, and hopefully I figure out now how to do that now that I had the whole live streaming sequence. Okay, I just click on end stream. I see the big big red button. Okay. You're so welcome, Ginger. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, we